Hey there, Ed McCormack here, founder of the crypto education platform DChained. Before we start today's video, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel, pound that like button. We appreciate all the support we continue to get from the viewers every single week. So to start off, I want to say that this past week was phenomenal. We saw prices in the overall market go way up. There's a new sort of sense of excitement and enthusiasm in the overall crypto market, and people are really feeling good heading into the holiday season. With that being said, though, there was some news coming out of Coinbase where they acknowledged that roughly 6,000 accounts on their platform were compromised between March and May of this year. And while we're not going to use this video to kick Coinbase when they're down on this news, what we do want to do is use this as an opportunity to learn. How can we inevitably continue to protect ourselves and our investments as new tactics roll out for hackers to gain access to our online accounts? And we're going to cover all of that along with ways that you could protect yourself with a new type of technology right now. So before we start today's video, I want to ask you just a basic question. Do you use the same password on multiple accounts? Do you use it on the same accounts for work as you do at home? If you answered yes to either question, you're not alone. In fact, 13% of all Americans use the same password on everything. 65% of them use it on many different accounts, including accounts that they use for both work and for home. Meaning, if their work systems and email get hacked, odds are that person probably can now gain access to sensitive information in your personal life. So with that being said, looking at what just happened in this last week, we saw that Coinbase acknowledged that one of the protection systems that they have in place that's also meant to be a convenience for many people, their SMS account recovery system, was hacked. And the way that hackers were able to do it was that they had three pieces of information. They had your username, they had your password, and they had your cell phone number. And this is something that has been happening for a very long time. It's more sophisticated cousin, you could say, is called a SIM card hack, which ultimately means either someone gains access to your physical SIM card or has access given to them by someone who's an insider or has privied information from either a cell phone company or hardware cell phone manufacturer. Ultimately, there's an insider job that's happening. But in this case, it was a little bit more simplistic. And part of that reason is the fact that people use the same password over and over. It allowed those hackers to gain access to the accounts. All they needed to do within these accounts is just to look up what your phone number is. And they were able to very simply gain that access that they needed in order to drain the accounts and withdraw to theirs. Now, many people watching this might say, well, I use 2FA. I use Google Authenticator in particular to protect myself. And while it provides a really good deterrent because it makes it a little bit harder in order for the hacker to get access, it is far from an adequate and sufficient solution. I'm going to tell you why. Well, there's several different ways that hackers are getting around, and I'm not going to go into how they do it because I certainly don't want this to be a tutorial for hackers, but there are ways that they can use that access to either have the site, like Coinbase, pass them what's called a session cookie. They could use a computer software system that is going to generate many 4 to 6 digit numbers in order to try and crack that code in the 15 seconds that it might have before your 2FA switches over. Or it's going to pretend to be a different site in order to gain access through an intermediary like a Facebook, like Gmail, what have you. That's more called an open authenticator hack. So needless to say, there are many different ways, without me going into fine details on how they do it, that hackers can gain access to your account using Google Authenticator. Why? Well, the Achilles heel in all of this is that regardless of what authenticator app that you use, it's all tied to your phone number, which, as we just mentioned, is the problem. If I don't want to use my phone number to help a hacker get access to my account, what I certainly don't want to do is tie an app that's going to give me this false sense of security, but is tied to my phone number. That's where sort of the rubber hits the road. And this is where, a lot of people are starting to focus in on what is the next generation for protecting your assets. Because in crypto, you are your bank and you have to provide those levels of protection for your investments. And this is where a physical hardware key could really provide you a lot of value. Now, just to put a disclaimer here, because I'm going to mention a brand, I am not endorsed, sponsored, being paid by anything. They're not showing up and handing me a bag of money. I have nothing to do commercially, financially, etc. with this company. I just have personally had a great experience with them, and I know a lot of people who use them as well. And it's also one of the few companies that provide protection services for many government agencies. So they have government agency level protection, which goes one step above a lot of what's out there today. With that being said, the company I'm talking about is called Yubico. And Yubico has these little hardware devices that plug into either your USB-C or your standard USB port on your phone, on your computer. And it has this little sensor that you touch. And when you touch the device, what happens is that the device will then send a password that's 44 to 64 characters long, has a one-time use only time frame, right into the account that is ultimately asking for your password. So when you set it up, you are going to set up your Gmail and tell Gmail that I want my password to be auto-generated, one time only, and it's going to be delivered to this device. And this device is going to get tied to your Gmail account based on its serial number and a series of other security protections that they put in place. So that when Gmail goes to ask for your password, it's looking for something that's coming from this one particular device. And it's going to match certain levels of criteria. And again, don't want to turn this into a tutorial for how to try to hack all of this, even though it's impossible. Why is it impossible? Well, if you look at how people gain access, it really comes down to either passwords that are very common, oftentimes standard language, because many people have to remember them, or it's just really not that complicated. It's regular letters and numbers. The longer your password is, the more characters, including special characters like the question mark, exclamation point, comma, that are included, the more combinations, the more difficult it becomes to try to guess. And once you go above 16 characters, you go into the millions, billions, quadrillions of years that supercomputers today would take in order to crack it, meaning impossible. And that's ultimately what Yubico is doing, and doing it as a one-time use only type of scenario. So even if you had the most best supercomputer, even if you had a quantum computer, the cost to try to crack it for one time is certainly not worth the effort. You just move on to someone else. And ultimately, where it becomes extremely invaluable for people is the physical nature of the device. Because you physically have to touch it in order for it to generate that one-time password, it makes remote hacking almost impossible. Not even almost, it makes it impossible. I have to actually have your YubiKey in my possession in order to gain access to your account. And that's where this becomes a level way above what is available and what's being used by the vast majority of companies and services today. Now, as I mentioned, I do want to come back and I want to give props and credit to Coinbase, because Coinbase has integrated YubiKeys. In fact, one of the sort of complaints that I've had over the last few months is that it only was allowed to be used in desktop. It wasn't incorporated into their mobile experience. After the hack, I noticed that they have integrated YubiKey now into the mobile app. And I first of all want to take my my hat off and appreciate the honesty and the candidness and acknowledging that this hack happened, but then also taking steps to rectify that, to mitigate continuous instances of this occurring, because I can't say the same thing for other exchanges where it happens almost every other month. So Coinbase, while this was certainly a incident that they want to forget, I do applaud the steps that they've taken to provide even greater protection for their customers. And ultimately, hopefully, many people start to use these physical device keys as a way of continuing to protect not only their investments, but also their digital lives, especially as more of our lives become more connected. It's critical that you protect it and you protect your reputation and the identities that you create online. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, again, subscribe to this channel, pound that like button. And until next time, happy and safe investing. I'll speak with you soon.